Well, thank you all. And I want to start by thanking UCLA and tying in something that I hadn't quite expected back to Ted Sarandos's speech. So Lawrence Bender, about 5 years ago, Lawrence and I did a film called Countdown to Zero, which was about nuclear weapons. And we took it very passionately. We went all over the world. We did screenings at the UN, Homeland Security, the CIA, in India, all throughout Europe, reaching decision makers about nuclear weapons. The goal to eliminate nuclear weapons. Now, at any one of these gatherings, Lawrence, being the debonair man that he is, would maybe meet a lady or two. And so a year later, we were at the Reagan Library at a nuclear weapons conference, which you can imagine is sort of dour. It's mostly older men, retired generals from Russia and Pakistan and so on. And I remember I met one lady along the way, and we had lost touch. She lived in Vancouver and had a long-term boyfriend. But at that conference, I said, I'm going to find out what she's up to. So I sent her a note, and she said, hey, I just moved to LA, broke up with the boyfriend. And so, in a way, Lawrence introduced me to my wife, Stephanie, who is here tonight. And the coincidences continue. So the other night, Stephanie and I had dinner with Norman and Lynn Lear. And I asked them if they were coming on Thursday night, and they said yes. I thought we had invited them. And then Norman said, are you coming? And I'm like, well, yeah. And so Norman said, well, I'm introducing Ted Sarandos. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I've got Al. A few more thank yous. There are so many friends and colleagues here that I'd like to thank and recognize. Steve Wesley, who is an early eBay colleague, really our first adult, who then went on to become the controller of the state of California, is here tonight. And Steve's just a wonderful, wonderful fellow that I hope you'll get to know. Congressman Ted Lieu, who has been a great colleague on all things environmental. Chancellor Jean Block and Dean Terry Schwartz, who have helped to build the new Skoll Center for Social Impact Entertainment at UCLA, and Peter Bissens, our new executive director of the center, who has just started. Dear friend Pat Mitchell, one of media's most important leaders and a great advisor, and of course, the Hollywood royalty who are here tonight. Goldie, Jane Fonda, and so many others. And what you do makes such a big difference. But there is an irony here. Many would agree that Al is the hero of the environmental movement today. His decades of hard work have led us to an unprecedented international agreement in Paris. And he arrived here this morning from India specifically to be here with us tonight. And he's pushing onwards right after this. And he's introducing me? Al, I just want to pause. You are such a great friend. I appreciate you so much. We all do, and I just want to take a moment to thank you. Um, I first got to know Al in 2005. I had just come from an international conference on big world issues, and climate was one of the issues, but we were told, well, we don't have to worry about it for 30 years. And then I came right back to LA and saw Al do his now famous slideshow, and everything changed. I realized we needed to get started right away. And that was exactly why I had created Participant, to get people involved in the most important issues in the world. And here was a massive issue staring us in the face. So immediately after the slideshow, Lawrence Bender and Lori David, Scott Burns, and I met with Al, and we presented this idea of turning the slideshow into a movie, and Al looked at us like we were crackers, but on the spot, Davis Guggenheim, who had been running Participants' documentary program, decided to resign and direct the movie. I agreed right away to fund the film and contribute any profits to environmental causes, and Al declared the same. With Leslie Chilcott joining as a producer, and Diane Wireman taking over Davis's role at Participant, an upgrade, I may add, we had a team and a mission. We were going to make a movie based on a former politician's slideshow on a subject few Americans cared about within a year and change the world. Piece of cake. On the drive back to the office, I asked a Participant colleague what he thought. And he sort of stammered and said, well, maybe it'll make it to PBS. So we began, and we followed Al around the world, city to city, continent to continent, an exhausting pace. And sometimes things didn't go as planned. At one point, Al was to do his slideshow to a group of insurance adjusters in a city in the deep south. But we weren't able to do the shoot because a storm rolled in. The city was New Orleans, and the storm was Katrina. So, 6 months from our conversation, we had a film, we had an interested public, and still we had no idea what to expect. So we went to Sundance, and the premiere was astonishing. There were ovations and standing ovations throughout the film. Paramount signed on and was a great partner. We had a heady premiere at Cannes, walking on foot up the Croisette to the Palais, refusing to drive, with Al leading the way. The film was an unlikely global phenomenon, a testament to Davis creating a film not just about data, but real human stories, including Al's. Over the next year, I traveled all over the world, and everywhere people were talking about changes in the weather. More surprisingly was how many people had heard of An Inconvenient Truth, including barely contacted tribes in the Amazon and street children in India. Even in China, as Al likes to say, everyone has seen the film, but we only sold one copy. An Inconvenient Truth, a phrase we invented, became a permanent part of the English lexicon. So please join me again in recognizing the team from An Inconvenient Truth. I've told the origin story of the film tonight because a lot has happened in the last 10 years. But it hasn't been just media that has advanced the ball on climate change. In my world, Participant is one of a family of 5 organizations, each with a distinctly different catalyst for change. Social entrepreneurs are one of these catalytic forces, and we're fortunate to work with the world's finest through the Skoll Foundation. Groups like Amazon, who use satellite technology to map the Amazon in real time, the Amazon Conservation Team, Blue Ventures, Root Capital, and so many others. We've seen new networks form to effectively share data between organizations and address the public. And capital markets are also an essential driver of change. Innovators are proving that profits versus sustainability is actually a false choice. What is good for the world is also good business. We're witnessing a true energy revolution from companies like Tesla and Solar City to Planet Labs, and watching as the price of renewable energy becomes more and more affordable for the world. Within 5 years, most of the world, 80%, it will be the least expensive form of energy. But change doesn't happen on its own. So before I leave, I'd like to thank the leaders of my organizations. Sally Osberg of the Skoll Foundation, Dipender Saluja of Capricorn, Bruce Lowry of the Skoll Global Threat Fund, Lindsay Spindle of the Jeff Skoll Group, and last but not least, David Lindy, the new CEO of Participant. And to all of their teams, a big thank you. You may remember the scene in the video where Al says, "You see that dot? It's our only home." I think about that all the time. Our job is by no means done, but I've never been more optimistic that with groups of good people like you and others who are joining the cause every day, we're well on our way to ensure that our only home will not only survive, but also thrive. Thank you very much.